All right, well, we are taking a moment right now to talk about some of the differences between renting and owning a home. I know some of you at home are thinking, yeah, what are some of the differences right now with the current state of the real estate market? So here to provide some clarity and some answers is the owner and founder of the Jim Bottrell real estate team. Jim Bottrell, good morning to you. Nice to have you here in studio.
Thanks for having me again.
And thank you for making the time on this Sunday. I know you have been very, very busy with the state of the housing market. But yeah, let's talk about this because I think this has such broad appeal right now for folks. Can you compare some of the differences between renting and owning a home right now for our viewers?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of very fundamental difference between renting a home and owning a home. Everybody starts as a renter. I started as a renter. I'm sure you started as a renter. Everybody in the studio here, we all started as renters. And while I was a renter from age 19 when I first rented my, to 29 when I bought my first home, I learned a lot of things. So I jokingly call rent death by 1,000 cuts. But here in San Diego County, with the rents as high as they are, we should probably call it death by 3,000 cuts.
Yeah.
Because that's what the average rent is these days.
Oh boy, wait, what is the average rent again?
$3,000 a month. Yeah.
Wow, let that sink in for a while.
So as a renter, I learned a number of things, and they're kind of harsh. The first thing I learned is that I was never going to be able to retire comfortably as a renter. I learned as a renter that I was never going to become wealthy, and I learned as a renter that I was never going to have an asset that I could hand to my children someday when I left this earth.
You're never having, yeah, it's kind of hard to swallow. These are pretty harsh statements, and explanations, but there's truth behind it. I mean, you've realized that. Now, so what does a renter do if they're concerned about this? I mean, do they just need to really understand the investment portion of owning a home?
Well, yeah. As a renter, I learned, like I said, I learned some things. I learned that I was investing in someone else's retirement every single month. I wasn't investing in my own. I learned that there was no upper limit on how much my cost of housing was going to be every month. So during those 10 years that I was a renter, at the end of my lease every year, there would be one of two questions or one or two conversations that I would end up having with the landlord. And both these conversations happened with me.
Yeah.
First one was, hey, Jim, thanks for being a great tenant. Thanks for paying your rent on time. Thanks for taking great care of the house. However, we're not going to renew your lease because we've decided we're going to sell the house and we're going to cash out. So here's me thinking, great, I have 30 days to find a new place to live. Where am I going to go? How much is that place going to be? And I don't get a vote in it. Right? And then the second conversation I would have is, hey, Jim, that's fantastic. Great tenant. Love having you here. We'd love to keep you as a tenant, but we're going to increase the rent by 10%. And me as a young 20-something, I'm thinking, are you going to remodel and make the place better?
Right.
And we laugh about that, but no, it's just the same. They did that. So I realized that as a renter, that every single month, I was paying all this money and I was getting nothing out of it. I was gaining nothing. I was literally investing in someone else's retirement every single month instead of investing in my own. And that, when I said that I was never going to become wealthy as a renter, that's why. Because wouldn't you agree that if you're going to become wealthy, you have to invest in yourself versus someone else, right?
No, I 100% agree. But, Jim, what about the expense, though? The expense to pay a mortgage every month. I mean, it's probably, in a lot of cases, going to cost you more to own the home, to pay that mortgage versus renting, right?
Well, yeah, at least at first. We know the rents go up every single year. I mean, they do. In the last few years, it's been 15% per year. We've been averaging 10% for a long time, except for the last couple of years. So, yes, at the very first year, the mortgage, if you go to buy a house right now, yeah, that mortgage payment's going to be a lot higher than it is if you're renting. But that's today. What happens next year and next year and next year, every single year, that rent goes up. But on the other hand, your mortgage is fixed. It never changes. And then at the end of 30 years, it goes to zero.
That's a great point to make. And I think that a lot of renters today may not realize that, or they may start to sense it now and start to be in the know that rent is starting to go up.
Oh, they know it.
Every year. They're feeling it right now, right?
Yeah, they're feeling it hard. But going back to your other question, it's actually cheaper. Even if the mortgage payment, that check you write, even if that check is higher than the rent check, it's actually cheaper because what renters, the mistake they make is they compare the dollars of the rent check equally to the dollars of the mortgage check. And you can't do that because there's a lot of really neat benefits built into a mortgage. So let's go through it real quick.
Yeah.
Rent. When you write that rent check and you send it off, you get exactly two things. things. You get a roof over your head, and you get a key that unlocks the front door for 30 days. That's the end of it. No more benefits. A mortgage, even though it might be higher, and this is why it's going to be cheaper, I'll go through it.
Yeah.
A mortgage payment, even though it's one check, it's made up of 4 different things: principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. So the principal portion, which is a big chunk of that check, people look at as an expense. It's not. It is the portion of the loan that you're buying down, meaning you're buying the asset. Now, it's still your money. It goes from your checking account to your asset that you own. It's still your money. So don't think of it as an expense. Think of it as a forced savings account. You're literally investing in yourself. That's how you become wealthy, right? The next part, the interest. Well, that's the cost of the money you borrow. However, that's tax deductible. And then you have the taxes, the property taxes, also tax deductible. And the last part, the last I, is the insurance is $100, not worth talking about. So when you start factoring those advantages, those tax benefits, that investing in yourself of the principal, and the tax benefits, that's where it starts becoming cheaper. Because if you take the interest in the property taxes, those tax deductions, it hardly seems fair. But people who own homes pay less taxes, less income taxes, than people who rent. So take 2 identical people. They have the same job, the same income, same everything, but one of them owns and one of them rents. The person who owns pays a lot less income tax than the person who rents. And that's when you start factoring those things. That's where those dollars cannot be counted equally.
That's why I think it's important that we have experts like yourself on the show, because to pretty much educate our friends at home of this information. These are things that a lot of people do not realize, or they don't think about it. And maybe perhaps now, as they're hearing us, they're thinking, oh, you know what? Let me take these things into account and see if it works for me. And chances are you're probably going to be in a much better place investment-wise in yourself than if you're, when you own a home, than if you rent.
Right. Well, most people don't realize the vast majority of millionaires on planet Earth actually made their money through owning real estate. And it's passive. You don't have to work for it. It's great. It's just there. I mean, you have to have housing regardless.
It builds equity, unlike a car where it depreciates.
Yeah, it does. Over
time
it goes up in value.
Yeah.
It always does. Over time.
The other issue that we won't get into this segment, Jim, is just being able to get into the market right now. It's tough for a lot of people. Yeah,
it's a lot easier than it used to be.
Yeah, is it? Well, we'll have to do a segment on trying to get into the market, because I know that comes up. Especially if having the down payment, having how that is coming into play for a lot you people right now.
Well, you don't have to, especially if you're a veteran like myself. You just zero down.
See, that's
great.
why.
And there's a lot of down payment assistance programs. You can do.
That's
FHA.
why we need another segment on that because that's the next step for folks who are going to be transitioning from renting to owning.
Yeah.
Jim, it's great to have you here.
Great, thanks for having me again.
On this Sunday, we sure do appreciate it.